Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are unlocking an incredibly fascinating ancient code of behavior. When you crack open classical monastic texts, like the 10 Recitations Vinaya we're looking at today, honestly, it's pretty easy to just see a dusty, ancient list of do's and don'ts. But if we look a little closer, you'll find these brilliant, profound case studies on human empathy, the absolute necessity of personal boundaries, and the inescapable law of karma. These texts aren't just rules. They are literally a masterclass in moral education. They give us a front-row seat to exactly how these early spiritual communities built a culture of deep compassion and serious ethical accountability.
For instance, imagine this. Why would a highly respected monk face a really severe reprimand over something as completely harmless as getting a drink of water? I mean, you might think spiritual discipline is all about these grand, sweeping acts of meditation or surviving incredibly long fasts. But our source text reveals something entirely different. It shows us, rather practically, that the true test of mindfulness actually hides in the absolutely most mundane moments of our day, things like washing your hands or just rinsing out a bowl.
And taking it to an even larger scale, we're going to uncover a truly shocking historical moment where the fully enlightened Buddha himself was forced to eat coarse horse fodder for 3 whole months. No joke. It's a story that absolutely proves that literally no one escapes the consequences of their past actions. It challenged the ancient world's fundamental understanding of what it actually means to be enlightened, and it's definitely going to reshape how we look at the law of cause and effect today.
All right, let's dive into our first case study in moral boundaries. It involves a monk named Channa. So according to the text, Channa knowingly used water that was filled with visible, living bugs. And when he was confronted by his fellow monks about, the inevitable death of these insects, Channa just brushed it off. His defense? Hey, I just want the water, I'm not using the bugs. He was basically using a technicality to justify his own convenience over another living creature's life. He simply didn't want the hassle of finding clean water or filtering it properly, so he prioritized his immediate comfort.
Well, the other monks were deeply troubled by this profound lack of empathy, so they escalated the whole issue straight to the Buddha. And the Buddha's response? It was swift, it was stern, and it cut right to the absolute core of monastic ethics. He asked, "How can one be called a monk, yet have no pity for living beings?" This single question establishes a fundamental moral baseline. It brilliantly illustrates that personal convenience can absolutely never override our compassion for life, no matter how tiny or insignificant that life might seem to us at the time.
So the crucial takeaway in this karmic education is that true mindfulness means taking active responsibility for even the unseen lives we bump into every single day. The Buddha laid down a really strict rule here. If a monk knows water has bugs, whether they can see them with the naked eye or they're caught in a filter, and uses it anyway, it's a formal violation requiring expiation. And notice the incredible, meticulous detail here. Every single use, cooking a meal, washing your hands, taking a sip, counts as an entirely separate violation. It's a rigorous, daily training method specifically designed to forge constant, compassionate awareness.
Now, this intense focus on compassion isn't just about insects, right? It extends directly to the social boundaries of human beings, too. Consider the case of Upananda. Basically, he was the ancient world's absolute worst houseguest. Upananda made a habit of constantly dropping in on this one specific family, completely ignoring the husband's desire for privacy in his own home. He treated their private living space like it was his own personal waiting room, completely oblivious or maybe indifferent to the massive disruption he was causing.
We've all dealt with someone who just cannot read the room, but Upananda's sense of entitlement took things to a whole new level. The husband kept dropping these massive hints, practically begging his wife to just feed the monk already so he would finally leave. But Upananda stubbornly replied, "It's too early. I'll just wait here until it's the proper time to eat." Naturally, the husband eventually snapped. He furiously stated that he couldn't even have a single moment of privacy in his own home. Upananda hadn't just overstayed his welcome. He had become a profound nuisance and a source of active, real distress for this family.
To prevent exactly this kind of social friction, the Buddha stepped in and instituted clear protocols defining exactly when a spiritual guest crosses that line into becoming an unwelcome intruder. Based on Upananda's repeated boundary violations, which, by the way, later even included him sitting alone with a woman deep inside a house completely out of sight, the rules were updated. A monk could not force his presence in a home, nor sit secluded with a woman. And this wasn't just about optics or, protecting a reputation. It was a profound moral consideration. It was all about showing deep, unwavering respect for the autonomy, the comfort, and the private boundaries of the lay community. To really hammer home this moral standard about boundaries, the Buddha recounted this absolutely fascinating past life story. He told the monks about a dog begging for food at a home. The dog was very careful to keep its body inside the gate, but its tail outside, which was a physical sign of respect for boundaries. But sadly, the homeowner brutally beat the dog anyway. This prompted the injured animal to limp away and actually seek out the local magistrates to demand karmic justice.
Now, when the magistrates asked how this abusive homeowner should be punished, the dog's answer was completely unexpected. He said, "Make him a rich official." I know the magistrates were baffled too. Why on earth would you give an abuser a massive reward? Well, the dog explained that in a past life, he himself had actually been a wealthy, powerful official, and the terrible, unchecked sins he committed with that power were exactly what caused his rebirth as a miserable street dog. He knew that handing his abuser earthly power was actually a trap. It was the ultimate karmic punishment. The dog understood perfectly that power without morality is simply a fast track to absolute ruin.
This dog's tale perfectly illustrates the absolute cosmic law of karma. Past actions inevitably bring present consequences. And this undeniable law brings us to an event so profound, it actually challenged the ancient world's entire understanding of enlightenment. You see, we often imagine enlightened beings as just sort of floating above the rules of reality, totally immune to suffering. But our source text emphatically rejects this. Karma bypasses absolutely no one. Literally no one, not even the Buddha.
So here's what happened. King Agnidatta of Varunja earnestly invited the Buddha and 500 monks for a 4-month summer retreat. But almost immediately after issuing this grand invitation, the king locked himself away for private entertainment, explicitly ordering his guards that under absolutely no circumstances was he to be disturbed. He totally forgot about his spiritual guests. And at that exact same time, a severe famine struck the region. With zero food available anywhere, the monks were reduced to eating rations of coarse, tough barley meant for horses, which was offered by traveling horse merchants just to keep them alive.
Now, the reaction to this severe hardship reveals a truly stunning contrast. Ananda, the Buddha's deeply devoted attendant, was just overcome with devastating grief. Watching his master chew on rough horse fodder completely broke his heart. The human sorrow just overwhelmed him, and he simply couldn't understand why something so awful was happening to someone so pure. But the Buddha? Well, he knew this was the ripening of a very specific past life action, a karmic debt that he simply had to pay in full. So he ate the horse barley with profound peace. He turned a moment of extreme physical hardship and public humiliation into a masterclass on accepting reality without a single drop of resistance.
Finally, after 3 whole months, King Agnidatta emerged from his isolation, realized his horrific negligence, and was absolutely terrified of the karmic consequences of starving the Buddha and his monks. Frantic to make amends, the king didn't just offer some empty apologies. He offered 8 specific restorative porridges, everything from rich butter and sesame to red bean and hemp seed. This highlights a crucial lesson in our karmic education today. Genuine repentance requires tangible, restorative action. He provided exactly what those severely depleted bodies needed to recover.
And the Buddha accepted these rich offerings without even a hint of resentment. Instead, he officially noted that these porridges provided exactly 5 distinct health benefits to the monks' recovering bodies. Things like curing hunger, quenching thirst, aiding digestion, warming the body, and clearing out old food. He took this severe karmic trial and immediately shifted the focus back to practical physical community health. It just goes to show that truly enlightened leadership means moving forward and healing without holding on to past grudges. So as you can see, these lessons in personal karma naturally build into much broader rules for the entire community. The texts outline these protective boundaries where internal harmony is prized far, far above satisfying worldly curiosity or personal ego. For instance, monks were strictly forbidden from acting like tourists and going out to watch the king's army march out for deployment. Why such a weird specific rule? Because an army represents violence, conquest, and worldly conflict, which is the exact opposite of the peaceful, detached mind they're working so hard to cultivate.
These final precepts really prove that true monastic discipline is never, ever about arbitrary control. It's about actively constructing an unbreakable community built on nonviolence and transparent integrity. The rules strictly forbid striking another monk, or even raising a hand in a threatening manner. Physical intimidation? It has absolutely zero place in a spiritual community. Furthermore, a monk cannot cover up the severe sins of another out of some misguided sense of brotherhood or loyalty.
Hiding a serious transgression is treated like a disease that rots the community from the inside out. Everything is purposely designed to foster a culture of absolute, radical honesty.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on as you navigate your own boundaries today. The specific rules regarding bugs in drinking water or overstaying in a layman's house might seem deeply ancient, but the underlying moral considerations, they are completely timeless. Are we truly mindful of the unseen consequences of our own convenience? Do we deeply respect the physical and emotional boundaries of the people around us? And perhaps most importantly, when we face the unavoidable consequences of our own past actions, do we react with bitter anger, or do we accept them with profound peace? Think about it. Thank you so much for exploring these ancient lessons with me today.